Danny. You are not live.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
just being recorded.
Okay.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock, the quorum is present. The April 17th meeting of the Board of Health is now open. Do we have concerns from the public? Any comments, questions? It's an issue that's not on the agenda. I actually don't see much of the public here.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay. Well, you'll just be celebrating.
No, we were interviewing finance director candidates.
All right, minutes of March 17th, those have been distributed beforehand. Any comments, additions? Hearing none, those are approved by unanimous consent. Just note that I wasn't present at that meeting, so I abstain. Request for modification of shared septic system in that subdivision.
At this point, I'd like to turn this over to the proponent for the application before you to explain the intricacies of what's happened. Probably not.
Okay. Mary Ann Hamlin, for KSO. This is the Finback subdivision of Bartlett Road. It's a shared septic system for several lots, and the only thing that we're requesting to do today is to change the easement area slightly on 2 of the lots. The Board of Health has an easement to go in there and do work to the septic system if in the future the developers or the homeowners don't maintain it. And we just want to reduce the easement to, on lots 10 and 11, on the side of lot 10 to 5 feet, from 10 feet to 5 feet, and on the rear of lots 10 and 11 from 10 feet to 8 feet. The only thing that's in the easement area is a 2-inch force main. It's right up against the lot lines, and you also have easements on the lots immediately surrounding both of those lots. So getting to it would not be an issue. If we need you to, would need to sign an agreement and amendment because the easement's been recorded so that we have something to put on the public record.
Questions from the board?
Is the land surrounding this part of the subdivision?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so they're not, there's no abutters to those?
Not to those lots. So these are the 2 lots, 10
Yep.
and 11.
Yep.
And the septic system is located in this lot 16 open space, which goes all the way pretty much around it.
Yep.
And you have easements onto these areas and these areas,
Okay.
as well as you'll still have a 5-foot easement
Right.
down here and 8-foot there.
Okay.
So there's no one around, nobody else except for those
Right.
lots in that subdivision have
Right.
the right to use.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
you
there's
get
no,
oriented toward-
there's no abutters or nothing, it's all in the same thing. Okay. Yep.
No, there are no regulations associated with this within Title V and or any other environmental code. This is simply the line that goes from each dwelling to the leach facility. It is a pressure line. I believe approval is in order.
Any other comments?
Just curious, when it says expansionary, what does it
You have to have an expansionary.
In case this fails,
Okay.
and then you go and put the expansion area in. Yeah.
The force main runs down Finback, and each of the houses has a little stopper that they're hooked up to it. And then that line runs into here. Some lots actually have their stoppers right here. They run kind of directly into it. So,
And that's how it is. And then the leach area is right there.
So this is a regular Title V type system? So
This
Well,
three.
it's shared.
But that-
It's a shared
Shared
system
system.
by all lots in the subdivision, yes.
so they all have their own systems within the house, and I don't know exactly how that works. And then the effluent pumps into
They-
one main pipe, and then
Then
it's
out
leached
here, yes,
out in
there's
here.
3 separate systems on the entire subdivision.
Yes.
So this is a little extraneous, but it makes me think of people who talk about Nantucket and shared systems and all those options. And instead of a regular Title V, it might be a super duper system or something. Well,
There's different rules and regulations.
yeah. Right, as I said.
They're on town water in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, any comments? we have a motion regarding this amendment?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of amending the existing easement, say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried unanimously.
I have the signature page for your signatures. Thank you.
Jeff? Good afternoon.
Member Jeff Carlson, the Natural Resources Coordinator for the Town of North. Richard asked me to come today to give a little update on where we were with the fertilizer BNP and some of those regulations. Happy to take any questions for we're at right now. We've offered class at Malcolm attended the first seminar. And we've had about 180 attendees to go through. It was primarily a turf workshop. It seemed to be where most of the interest was. They're looking to set up other classes for other specialty areas of trees and shrubs and those things. And since that class, we've put through about another 90 people or so that have completed those classes, and we've issued out a little completion card to all of them with just their name and ID, so we can go out and we do our field inspection. So we've done about 270 people total. Got a lot of real positive feedback from the class. Specifically, again, some of the areas that we'd like to address going forward are getting the class offered in Spanish, or at least a translation of the video into Spanish. It seems to be a big concern. It is something we're working on. We found an individual in New Jersey who can offer the class or a similar class in Spanish for any Spanish speakers that are there. We also, again, are looking to try to get a more specialized areas for people that have an interest in things that aren't involved in turf. I'm hoping to set that up for the summer and through the fall and winter. I think it's our goal, I know after speaking with the DPW director as well, to have these classes kind of continually go and offer these specialty areas, and it's part of the process and part of the BMP to have short specialty courses that are kind of a continuing education in the state, current on rules and regulations and licenses. The real benefit that we've gotten to this point, other than having 270 people come through, is it's allowed us to build a really great database of information for names and contacts that we didn't have before to help us get the word out about the Board of Health regulations process. It's been really good there and some good feedback. With the BMP as well, when it was in front of the board, we're starting to put together kind of a BMP review committee. Looking for members to come and sign up to be a part of that. I think we're looking for kind of a 5-member board that will kind of work with the BMP primarily, and then as things evolve with the BMP, when changes need to be made, we can address those and bring those back to this board or to the Board of Selectmen as well, as we kind of go through and evolve through the BMP process. We are actively enforcing the regulations now. We've been out and around, and we pretty much run into a landscape where we'll stop and see what's going on. And we have a number of contacts prior to the 15th of April when they had fertilizer and instructed they weren't allowed to be putting that down, and giving copies of the regulations, and they encouraged to go to the classes that we had after the original class if they had missed. And we're just trying to get out there, get around and get the word out that the town is enforcing the rules and regulations that you all set. So we're get out there and get that started and get the ball rolling. That's kind of what it is.
I have a couple of questions. Are the meetings listed somewhere? Because I have a few of my friends that are landscapes that haven't been to that class yet.
Sure. So the way we advertised last time is anywhere that sells fertilizer, we advertise the last 4. So at Marine, Island Lumbers, covering some of them here now, Boleros, Bartlett Farm, we'll put those, we'll advertise those out as best we can. The last set was up on the town website, and then the town website migrated, and our hosting disappeared when the new website started. So I do apologize for that. But I think for the ones going forward too, we're going to try to also advertise the opportunity for homeowners and the general public as well. So we'll probably put some new ads in the paper for people. If people are specifically looking to get licensed, they can actually come. But I think if people are interested in seeing it, I think we'd like people to see it. That's one of the other big concerns we've had come forward from the landscapers are they're going to their clients, and their clients have questions about the rules and the regulations and how they have to do it, and obviously have goals for their own lawns and their gardens that the landscapers explaining to them how rules and regulations work and make those come together. So to help the general homeowner understand why their fertilizer regime or their management program for their properties is changing and is changing.
Right.
Something that we are trying to develop materials to give that, or even something as simple as a refrigerator magnet that says, is your landscaper licensed to apply fertilizer? You need to ask that question when you're hiring someone to kind of get on that side now that we have a pretty good start with commercial guys themselves.
Now, do everyone that goes to the class has to get licensed, or just the owner of the business?
So the way we've been doing it, and the way after we spoke to some of the RCA guys, is we're essentially having a designated person that's site responsible. So if you have a business and you have 10 crews and 2 of those are fertilizing, as long as one individual that's on the fertilizer crew is licensed, they cover that crew that's out working. We know that not everyone can get everyone that's out through the class,
Right.
and because we want to be able to go to a site and say, if the 5 of you were putting down fertilizer, if Malcolm had his license, he's the one that's responsible to be sure that equipment is calibrated properly, fertilizer is properly measured, the product is a compliant product, and he's responsible for that site.
Okay, now tell me exactly, physically, what is a license?
What is the license?
Is it a picture?
The license is a unique card for everyone. It has their name.
Mm-hmm.
Underneath it, there's a little security hologram, so you can't copy it.
Yep.
We also, all of us that check carry the master list that's there. The last person that we checked today simply asked for their license. They produce their license with their name, ask them for an additional piece of ID, driver's license, anything. Check against our list just to be sure, and everyone is fine. So,
Who issues that?
right now, that gets issued through our office.
So is it it's not a photograph?
No, we tried to get photographs. We're just having a problem with the time of year that we're putting out and the volume. The only place I could issue photograph IDs right now is the police station. And at the time that this was all going forward, they just didn't have the time or resources to get all of those done. So this first one is very shorter term, so I believe the licenses following this season will all be photo IDs.
Okay.
That is place.
I know one more question. How are the retailers that sell the fertilizer accepting what's going on?
All of them are really great. Really, the comments that we've heard in talks with, when I was just with the guys at Valero's last week, a number of them have attended the classes and gone through. They're happy to comply. Their words, try to boil it down as best I can, were as long as it's not damaging the business, if they can still sell fertilizer, they're more than happy to sell whatever products are compliant if that's what they're looking to do. I know a number of the larger distributors, places like Carroll's, it's a larger fertilizer distributor in the area, have started to make specific Nantucket blends that are compliant to the BMP, and they're essentially providing those at the same cost as their other products to places like Marine or Valero's or Island Lumber to be compliant. And that seems to be working for all of them. The difficulty that we're having right now with the sellers is the rules and standards are primarily geared towards commercial applicators where the licensing is. Private homeowners don't require the license, so it's much more difficult. If I wanted to privately go apply and not hire someone to put fertilizer down, it's much more difficult. So some of those products are still around, but it's still kind of incumbent upon them to self-comply to the DMV.
So if a homeowner has something that's not approved, and he asks a licensed landscaper to put it down on his property, what is he supposed to say? No, I can't do that?
A licensed landscaper should probably say, no, I can't put that product down, but I can put down this product.
Okay.
This is what I have.
All right.
We make it a strong point in all the classes to make sure that everyone knows that the rules of the BMP and the regulations are their responsibility. We can't follow everyone around all the time. It's very similar to shellfish enforcement or beach driving and endangered species things that you need to know the rules of that business you're going to be in. And when those clients have there, and that's where the feedback from them, if they're looking for materials to give to their clients, so their client won't come out with their bag of, Scott's 20/20/20 and say, I'd like you to put this down, they can say, well, I can't put that down and this is why. There's phosphorus that's in that bag. You need a soil test that demonstrates a need for phosphorus. We don't have that here. We can't apply this. But we can apply this because we know we're looking to supplement nitrogen, we're looking to supplement potassium, we have that ability to get that information. I think that's really going to be the next big focus.
And does this, I mean, in addition to the commercial landscapers, does this apply even to, let's say, a caretaker who has 10 clients and he does their lawns?
They're commercially applying them, yes.
Yeah,
We've
okay.
had a number of caretakers come in to the class, and a number of them have called to ask about that. To be honest, most of the ones that have come through have found it really beneficial because they're not necessarily in the same level of turf management as
Right.
someone that specializes in the lawn. So a lot of this information has been good for them, and a lot of them have come up afterwards and said, I realize that now for the last 10 years, the struggles I've been having with certain areas, I know why I'm having those struggles now. It makes sense that my watering isn't correct. I'm not picking the best grass for the type of soil I have. I can make better decisions. I can improve upon what I'm giving. So it's been good. We've been getting a lot of positive feedback with most of it.
All right, yeah. I thought the seminar was excellent. It got a little technical at some point, but I guess for that audience it was appropriate.
Yeah, the primary audience, that first one especially, was a lot of really heavy turf managers.
Yeah.
Most of the golf courses were there. Most of the what I would consider to be larger landscape companies were there, and a lot of just general lawn care professionals. And I think one of the things we heard a few times were just what I was talking about with the caretakers.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys have been managing lawns and mowing and aerating and doing these things, and a lot of it is, I did it for someone else that I work for, so I kind of carry the practice on, and now they can understand why they're doing it or what's going on or the complexities that are there. I thought it was really interesting myself.
Yeah, I did too. Anyway, so,
Been through a few
and there
times.
was a representative of Martha's Vineyard Boards of Health came with me, as they were moving along with their regulations. They're going to be a little different than ours, but essentially they started with ours and just
Yeah.
added
They've
it.
been in touch a few more times since the last questions to see how it's going.
Yeah.
They've definitely taken a lot of the same steps that we had in the project, kind of after ours is going. Be interested to see what they produce.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks. If there's any questions or interest in that,
I'm glad it's moving along.
in that Article 68 work group, just let me know. Standard committee application form can get it to me or for Eric or me. Just send it back to one of those two spots as well.
And I would encourage the board, if you have time to go to one of the seminars. I actually,
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone has interest, please send me an email. I can also email
quite
you
interesting.
the passwords to the video. You can watch
Yep.
that at your own leisure.
now that I don't have any grass, before I had grass and it never works,
So you've given up grass?
I have no grass. But see, now, I actually know a lot about grass.
Now you can start again.
No grass in that seminar.
There's a lot of,
3 hours, 3 hours, a lot of grass.
there's a lot of grass.
Thank you.
All right, consent order 78. Michael, sorry, anything?
Yes, you have before you a administrative consent order for 78 Arkansas Avenue for your approval. The Bridier residents, they have a technically failed septic system. Rather than mandating a complete repair of that septic system, which is obviously somewhat costly, until the decision is made to go either sewer or alternative technology in Nantucket, he has agreed to enter into the administrative consent order. The quote was $31,000 to replace his system. That number will now go to the finance individuals, and they will draw up a 20-year payment plan for him, and he will pay into the system until the decision is made to either go sewer and or alternative technology in the Nantucket area. So I'm looking for your approval on this.
Comments, questions for Richard?
Just remind me again, Richard, so we get 5 years from now and we decide to put some sewer lines in. What happens to the money again?
The money will be returned to the property owner. They may do with that as they wish. It is essentially a forced savings account.
So if they were required to pay some level of betterments, for example, that's a source of some of that
They
money?
could certainly apply that to sewer entry permits
Yeah.
and or alternative technology, depending on how the town chooses to go.
Whatever the solution is.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, they don't, they just essentially carry on.
No,
They're going to make some,
their agreement with us, we agree that they can leave their system as is because it is functioning appropriately. It just happens to be too close to groundwater. And we will allow them to maintain that system as long as they pay in to the
I
administrative
guess that's
account.
what I meant by carry on. Their
Yes.
current system will function.
Yes, it's a forced savings account for them.
He's gonna, they're gonna do a full-blown repair here.
That's what they're not going to do the repair. That's
Oh,
the
that
price,
was-
that's the estimate that they
That would-
needed.
That would be to, if it was gonna, okay. So
Yeah.
there is a temporary repair.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And this is the number that we base their payment
That's
on.
right, yeah.
So this goes to the 31,000 goes to finance. They come up with a 20-year plan. He pays in through taxes, and at the end, obviously, it's not going to go 20 years. So whenever the determination is made, we will look at all of these accounts, and we're going to see a lot more of them now. We'll look at these accounts and return the money to the owner, and they can do what they want with it.
Richard, does the price, if to fix it is an alternative system, then they have to get a price for what an alternative system?
No,
that
no,
is-
we're just going to mandate that they do that. This
No,
is
but I
pretty
mean,
much an
we
alternative
understand-
system.
What, the money that they come up with, the price that they come up with, is it just for a conventional system?
No, it's for an
No.
alternative system. It's for a complete repair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what this estimate is?
Yes.
It's based on an alternative design.
Yeah.
Oh, it's based on an alternative
It
design?
is,
Okay,
yes.
fine.
So, and the idea sort of is if we don't sewer, we're likely to require an alternative, so here's what
Yes.
it costs.
It's either going to be
Okay.
sewer or alternative technology, so
Now,
that's
is
what it's
that the
gonna
same that happened to Millie's? Didn't we sign a consent?
Yes.
or-
Yes, that's.
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
When do you estimate a decision be made on that?
That question may be answered more by the individual to your left.
We have been promised a report that is now at least 4 months beyond the initial deadline. So we should know we should have the updated report maybe the end of June, but, you know, I'll be.
Is this a committee? It's coming from
No,
a committee?
this is the consultant,
Oh,
and
consultant.
we're updating their comprehensive wastewater management report, and it's going to say whatever, but let's be frank, that's just the beginning of a process, and then we're going to have, my guess is, sort of like we had last time, a deliberation and different opinions, and it's easy for a consultant, and I'm just speculating here, to say, let's sewer this and this and this, because that's the easy, safe answer for them. But when it comes to sewering Monomoy, just to pick an example that came up 3 or 4 years ago, we're going to be right back where we were, frankly. I think we're going to have some contention again about who pays, how's it done, is it really worthwhile, and we're going to have the modeling exercise again, and it's not an easy answer, frankly. So we'll see.
And I think Rick's right on this. This certainly is going to have to go to town meeting for voter approval.
So it's,
No matter what.
Anyway, it's just unfortunate, but that's the reality. I'm just suggesting that's the political reality
Yeah.
of how this gets worked out.
All right, do I have a motion regarding the consent order?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now,
The order is approved.
in that sense, I would remind the board that the board, a number of months ago, almost at the formation of the board, authorized the director of the health department to sign on behalf of the board, so I will sign that
Please go
tomorrow.
right ahead.
Thank you.
Can I just go back 1 second on the last, we mentioned the committee. There is a sewer advisory committee. So there is a group of people who are going to have to deal with the results of the report and recommend to the board how to finance it and all those questions. And that's an interesting group. And there are lots of differences of opinions right there, so, you know.
Sounds like the tick-borne disease committee.
Is it, it's an appointed group by
It's an appointed group by the Board of
the
Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen?
And it's.
Is there a selectman on the group?
There is. There
Okay.
is.
Okay, thank you. We have some discussion items. The first was, I'd like to discuss the concept that we endorse a regulation, propose a regulation, have boarding houses or rentals or whatever, as we discuss it, actually be mandated to put up some information, educational information. Because I remember a year or so ago, Richard said he would go around and put little cards on the table, and he'd come back and they were put away. Because perhaps there's some fear that they're going to
Scare away visitors?
Scare away, but of course I always say when we have a real tragedy, we're probably going to scare away a lot of visitors. So I don't know your thoughts on this if you wanted to move forward with it. I would see, however it would work out, is that they must display prominently educational materials.
I have mixed emotions personally about this. I know what happened the last time I tried that, but we had one single informational source. I think the island's grown in its knowledge of tick-borne diseases. I think it's also grown in its ability to present information to the public. We have a number of other handouts and pamphlets and things of that nature that are definitely going to be offered and given to every lodging house on the island this summer. There's also the tick video, which may come out. There's also going to be a more advanced discussion, a more active, a more lively discussion with regard to tick-borne disease. I think you'll see further on down on the agenda. We're going to do, again, the video is here, and the tick-borne disease work group. I am leaning towards holding off on a regulatory approach to this for maybe one more summer to see if I can gain a larger cooperative effort by the lodging houses. But I'm pretty cautionary in my approaches to these things, so that's certainly, it's certainly up to the board.
I think if you're a year-round resident, certainly very well aware of tick-borne disease, but I remember a couple of months ago I sent you all an article from the New England Journal of Medicine about a newborn that came very close to dying from babesiosis, and it said in there the parents had recently visited an island off the coast of Massachusetts. So I don't know if that was Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard. So it's those individuals that don't have a clue. And there's simple things they can do.
Just to echo what Richard said, and it's only about 5 years ago, the Nantucket Community Association spent several $1,000s publishing a pamphlet that we did distribute to the boarding houses and to visitor services, et cetera, and it was the same reaction they all got. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying, at that point in time, since then, there's been a lot more in the press, and the public is much more aware of the problem. So,
I agree. There's a much higher awareness right now of the issue.
But not for our visitors. That's my concern.
Right, but do we do have the ability, and I don't know if we're doing it, that there are places that are sort of public domain that we can, so on the steamship, the airlines, the airport, visitor service,
You're right.
chamber. So if we cover 22 things like that, or whatever it is, we're hopefully hitting the visitor on their way in. So
I do have a bigger arsenal available to me. Again, I have more information in a number of different formats, and I also have additional locations that we can work with. Obviously, POEs, ports of entry, airport. There are booths set up that are manned by individuals, and there's no reason why this information can't be there. We're also going to try to work. We've also had some inroads with the Steamship Authority, trying to get some more additional information on the boats themselves. And again, I'll be going and working with the Lodging Association, trying to at least get the word out in a more formal manner. There are obviously people who are going to be here for 2 and 3 days that we are going to miss. There are people who are going to be here for a week and a half or a month or two who are just enjoying the island to the point where they are oblivious to other issues no matter how they're presented to them. And we're never going to deal with those folks, unfortunately. But I think we can do a few things within lodging houses that may garner their attention, certainly. But again, it's up to the board.
I personally think if you could get handouts or something on the High Line, on the steamship, at the airport, here and Hyannis, that they'll pick up, like it could right on the ticket thing, on the ticket counter, if there was something they could pick up, like when they pick up the Highline schedule, or they pick up the airline schedule in Hyannis, if there was something in there that they could pick up, you know, I mean, that's easy enough if they would agree to do it. I mean, I don't know if the airlines and the steamship and the Highline, I think people would agree to do that, put them on their counter so people could be, you know.
These are the avenues that we need to explore
Yeah.
very, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, my concern again is that it would be up for the first month, and then someone's going to have to be responsible to replace the handouts, et cetera. I'm still leaning to something more forceful. We had a comment from the audience, and I'm welcome to hear it.
I remember, this was about 10 or 12 years ago, and it may still exist, but I don't think so. I think primarily under the aegis of NCH, there was a folder available that was essentially intended to be carried home with the tourist to give to his or her uneducated doctor, uneducated about Lyme disease. And it even had Tim's telephone number in it, so that if somebody went home, gave the folder to his or her doctor, and the doctor said, "My God, I've never treated this. I really don't." They could call Tim. Maybe one of the things, this is not prevention. You guys are clearly talking about prevention, and that's wonderful. But I think one of the things that might go over pretty well is maybe a little card, like you put in your pocket, that you take home to give to your doctor if you think you've acquired the disease.
But that's
not
right.
prevention,
No, that's right.
it's
But it
treatment.
has to be available. It has to be somewhere
Yes.
where somebody can pick it up. It's not like they go to the hospital to get one of these things. It's got to be somewhere that they would be standing at a counter or something. There would be a little card, just like the Highline schedule, a little thing like
They're
that.
the size of a credit card. We have.
Right. That they could pick that thing up and just read it.
There's plenty versions of that available in different organizations.
It comes down to a question of funding, and there's some budget review that has to be done here, yes.
I don't want to try on that. This is a public health issue, but
Little cards aren't very expensive.
they're not
so.
too expensive. So what is the sense of the board? You don't want to pass or talk about a regulation, or do we want to give Richard a month to go out and talk to various people and see how receptive they are?
Well, I personally think we should try to do it, have them volunteer to do it, have Richard talk to them and say, listen, how would you feel if we made a little card that's like 2x4 or 3x5? Would you put it on the counter when people are picking up the airline tickets, or they're picking up tickets at the Highline or the steamship? If it's there, you know, I think we've done our job. But if we don't put anything there, then there's no way they're going to pick it up.
What about the inns and the hotels?
Oh, I've got information for them, too.
Yeah, I mean, I admit I'm reluctant to move forward with a regulation until we try something first on it. And I think some of these ports of call, it's not, I mean, it's voluntary, but it's not as voluntary. They have a public service obligation, so if they don't volunteer, I think you ought to let us know. And then there are ways to make sure they do.
I can do that.
So the board is much kinder than I would be.
Yes, right.
I'm not even going to push this. But what I would ask Richard to do is that at the next meeting, come back to report to us on what's the response to the airlines, what's the response.
Drugstore, you can put it in the drugstore at the counter.
Yeah. What's the response of, and there's a housing association, there's an inn and hotel group.
The lodging group.
The
yeah,
lodging-
and
the lodging
Balance
association.
herself, so we all know.
Just, you could do that next month,
Mm-hmm.
those two venues, and see what their response was. And of course, they all say yes, but then we're going to have to go back and check it.
Well, you know, just in terms of the card, that's one thing, but, you know, like the, what are they, the folded 8.5 by 11, and those are sort of standard slots out at the airport, and, you know, we ought to have access to one of those, and the airport commission ought to say absolutely, you know.
You know, not only that, let me tell you, being in the real estate business, every rental that we did in the real estate business, okay, every client that came got a packet with about 25 things in there. You know, where to dine, where to swim, where to rent, where to do this. And you could have a 3x11 folded up, right in there with every single person that gets a rental, and it comes from every single real estate officer on the island. We all do it to every person that rents on the island. So that could be in that packet.
That's another idea, sure. So-
Okay, so Richard will report back to us in a month, and and then we'll see how they're doing, and then maybe the month or two after that, we'll see what's actually happened.
Sure.
And then if nothing's happened, I will bring back the proposal to actually do a regulation,
Okay.
because then Richard will have to enforce it. I just think it's kind of that, when I read that sentence, and the family had just returned from an island off the coast of Massachusetts.
Well, we know it was the vineyard, so I mean, come on.
Well, the authors were kind enough not to name it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, on the same subject of ticks, there's some discussion of a tick-borne disease working group. This is not another committee, is it?
It's a task force.
This was your idea?
It was my idea, yeah. Because I don't see it happening at this table. I don't think that we are really going to be able to flesh out and do the work that's necessary to come up with a comprehensive plan which incorporates education. Just what we're talking about could be included in it. And then this small working group could bring recommendations to the Board of Health, and then Board of Health to the Board of Selectmen. But there are a bunch of things out there that can be done. And I think just going from month to month saying, what are we doing? We really need to get a big picture on this.
Yeah, it reminds me of we had the Harbor Plan Implementation Committee, and you had the full report from the work group we had a couple of years ago. And that sort of forms a basis, and if you
Right.
have a group willing to kind of take that and follow up, it's hard to see how we'd be harmed.
Do you have people that are willing? Have you talked to anybody?
Not yet. I mean, I was waiting to see how everyone felt about it. I mean, I think obviously Malcolm and myself, having served on the Tick-Borne Disease Committee, who else did I talk about? Jim Lentowski from
Yeah,
Conservation
Jim.
Foundation, possibly Cormac. Certainly would like to get some input from Sam Telford. Just like Martha's Vineyard is following us on the fertilizer, we can follow them on what they're doing with the tick-borne disease
Well, let us,
program.
I suggest then that you and I have lunch.
I mean, if the board chooses, we could certainly advertise for a very small committee, appointed by board members. You could go through the names at a meeting and come up with the individuals you'd like to see sit on the committee and give them a charge.
We could also just delegate to the chairman and to Helene
Rather just delegate it.
to
Okay.
appreciates working with some people who are willing to volunteer and report back to us once in a while,
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we could do that.
You don't want to repeat.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I think you're getting our support, and we appreciate your efforts kind of thing, so.
Fine, we will work on that and get back to you.
Okay.
And next, on the same subject, the video is progressing. Dan Driscoll is presently working on an outline and a script. He has interviewed a couple of people. He's interviewed Sam Telford, he's interviewed Scott White about animals, and he's got I think a very high-level outline I saw that's actually, I think, would be quite well done. And so his next step is to deliver us a script, a first draft script. He plans to shoot it in June. One reason that's when he has time to do it, and two, he wants pictures of grass, speaking of grass.
Grass. There is no grass. You can't go to your house.
Not now.
So he's got, I think, a great concept of an opening scene, but we need a child running through the grass.
He's going to have one of these low scenes where the grass, it's
Yeah.
like the Scott's advertisement. It's all.
Yes, yes.
So it's moving along, and so we will, when I get a script, I'll let you take a look at it for your comments, if we have theory of that. And our summer intern,
We are working, Charlene and I are working on the selection of an individual. I believe we have chosen or at least will recommend an individual who is a pre-med student, has island ties,
Good.
and we'll be working again with Charlene in this office to, and I guess that's my question. Would you like the information repeated from last year, the same protocols?
Well, I think it was the first year we got decent statistics, but you know, there always can be improvements. So I think, you know, visiting with the doctors, the ER, going through the data, et cetera, and anything else that the person, I think, can get us more accurate. I
Well-
don't need necessarily higher numbers, I just need accurate numbers.
Once the decision is made and once we have an acceptance, which should come very shortly, I'd like her to at least sit down with the chair or with the chair and Helene and to move along and with an informational meeting for her or him.
Is there money here? Is this a strictly voluntary kind of thing? or-
Boy, that's been the problem. We do have funding. We do have funding for this. Right now, the Board of Health does not have its own budget. We are included with Planning and Land Use Services. There have been some difficulties, in all honesty, in funding a number of things for public health, including educational seminars and programs such as this. Hopefully, that will become a more viable issue July 1st when we have the new budget. There have been some concerns, let's just put it
Yeah,
that
well,
way.
I mean, all that craziness we went through with the funding for the video, because it was a long
Well,
time. I thought
that
we-
craziness
I thought we
is,
had money, and then all of a sudden there was no money.
well, that craziness is rampant through a number of our other programs, too, for the same reason. I thought the money was there, and now it doesn't seem to be, at any rate.
Last year, we did fund, though. What was it, how much did we fund for this position? We did pay last year.
Yes.
So we paid the
Last year,
intern?
yes, yes.
And we
That's what
will,
I'm trying to
do the
understand.
same this year. There is
Was it
enough in the professional
$5,000?
services,
It
but
was
yes,
some- yeah.
yes.
Well, Richard, why can't we ask for budget? Why can't we ask for our own budget?
I think the expression from this seat has been there, done that, got to know.
And they just say no?
We are a part of Planning and Land Use Services, and therefore we are part of their budgetary process.
Well, I mean, if we're part of their budgetary which part is ours?
I mean, shouldn't there be a line?
You
I mean,
ask good
we
questions.
joke about this, but.
I mean-
this
I'm
really
not
bothers
joking
me.
about it.
This
No,
really
I know, it's
this really
serious.
bothers me. There should be a line item in the planning and land use that says.
For the Board of Health.
Blank.
I
number.
don't disagree with you. However, administration and planning and land use services does not share that approach.
Could maybe another way to ask the same question, the question is good. So if you had a expectation that you were going to get $5,000 for XYZ program, I'm trying to understand what the issue is. Is that a good example, and then you have to go to the plus budget and get somebody to give you that money, so to speak? Or?
That's correct. I have to have all of my funding approved by management.
Right, so,
But is that funding in there when they decide what the budget is going to be? Are we in there?
I do not have a defined number. I am simply told that they looked at last year's budget and incorporated some of those numbers in there.
So one way to sort of think about this, I'm just saying sort of from my perspective, is that if it would be helpful if we knew what those requests or issues were. You know, just like a little list. Here are the 3 things we thought we would do this summer, and if we thought we were going to get $15,000 out of the professional services budget, or whatever the heck it is, Richard.
That has been done.
Right. Would you just share that with all of us, so then at least then I would know what it was, not that it'll help, but.
Yeah, well, last year, I mean, we went through this, we
Did you?
presented a little list of things we wanted to do,
And then nothing
it
happened?
seemed that the money. and
We
I-
thought the money was there.
And I actually, when I got a little crazy over the video, I dug in some old minutes where it was clearly stated by that chairman at the time that there was blank amounts of money there.
One of the issues that we face in what I refer to as a homogenized budget is
So I-
the simple case that when another department, such as building and/or planning or HDC has, has an unforeseen expense, substantial funding comes out of the overall homogenized budget, and therefore some of the projects which we may wish to do may not have ample funding.
So we surface it, and then we'll figure out how to deal with it. I mean, it'd just be helpful.
It would be helpful, because, we're not gonna talk about spending a lot of money. I could see the intern every year, a couple educational activities, and that's not that expensive.
Well, I mean, you and Richard worked on a detailed budget.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
could pull that out.
Yeah.
All right.
Big frustration.
Continue to talk to you, because this next one is an item that we had actually in our budget for last year. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for several reasons, and that's the Skin Cancer Symposium.
Yeah, well, we were partnering with the hospital on this, and we sort of, it fell apart for a number of reasons. I think we didn't follow up, and they didn't follow up, and then the presenting physician became ill, so it all didn't happen. But I guess the question is, are we interested in doing it again this year? We had done the symposium on tick-borne disease 2 years ago with the hospital. Margot was the moderator.
Did you get a good turnout for that at the time?
Pretty good turnout.
Yeah, we
And they're
had,
still showing it on television.
It's still on television.
Yeah.
This is actually, I think,
We had a very good panel.
an excellent panel. The question is, two questions, like, as when we said, do we want to do it? Do we have the money to do it? It won't be that
I
expensive.
was going to say, does it take money? I mean, if you get a physician, the hospital does have dermatologists
Yeah.
joining us, and
Right.
Yeah,
it
we-
seemed reasonable they'd make an hour
Yeah.
available if necessary.
Yeah, we did it right here.
It doesn't take a lot of time.
We did it in this room, and it cost, the people from the mainland, I think we paid for a ferry ticket or two. One night.
So if that's all you're talking about,
We
it's
had
not-
one group stay overnight.
Well, it's not that simple. I wish it was. We can't even get ferry tickets to go to informational seminars off island at this point. I am very optimistic after July 1st, but we have been instructed that prior to July 1st, anything above and beyond the routine manifestations of a weekly expenditures within the health department will not be funded.
See, the problem with that, it's too late for our
Aye.
analysis. Because this is a summer activity, and one of the problems we found last year was the scheduling of the various positions. We had 3, and we could never get them set on the same date.
Mm.
Then we had 2, and then we had 1 that got sick,
Yeah.
and then,
So that sounds more like a scheduling problem for the participants.
it's the participants.
I mean,
yes.
and if they're all on the hospital staff to visit here periodically, they don't all come on the same day, I'm
That's the
guessing.
problem.
So it's more a hospital problem than it is our problem, unless they would respond to, I can't believe this is a money issue for the physicians, so.
No, it's not. The
You know,
physicians don't
yeah.
expect to get paid.
Right.
We could have been more proactive in our approach to it. I think we met with 2 of the hospital administrators, and then it was sort of, it was left in their hands that they were going to organize, and it didn't happen. We also didn't follow up. So if it's something that we're really determined, it's something that we would find certainly a service to the public and for the summer population, which I personally think it would be. It's something that we would have to really make sure we're on top of it.
Yeah, what I learned from that, we would have to organize. it.
Yeah.
Right.
And we could ask, again, Margot if she would participate as the moderator, because she did a very good job with the tick. I think it's part of our mission, not just to send out a septic system, but to educate the public. And we have to start thinking about other things besides ticks. We're starting to dream about it. This would be a good topic for the summer.
Yeah.
So if we contacted potential physicians and asked them for potential dates, with the caveat, I don't know if it's going to happen, well, how much is it going to cost?
I mean, I'm not sure why it costs anything.
If you're
The
talking
physicians-
transportation, if we're going to offer transportation to these individuals, and if they don't mind boat trips, probably no more than maybe $300.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
And some of them will be coming here anyway.
I mean, if it was $300, you can get the money from the Civic League. It's not a question of money, or the, the Nantucket Community
And I
Association.
don't
We'll
think we
split
need a
it.
panel of 6 people either.
No,
I
I
think-
don't think, for this, I think, 2, because you want difference of opinions. And you always like a little debate.
I mean, the advances in melanoma alone are worthy of a symposium. Treatments and,
So the first step would be to visit Margot and see if she can help line up the physicians, and the money shouldn't be an issue, because we can find it someplace else if we have to.
Good, so we will,
Yeah.
do you want to chair this?
I'd love to. Yes.
Thank you very much.
I mean, would it help to get other civic organizations to co-sponsor with you? You know, I mean, if you can
Well, we
build
did
up
the-
some,
Yeah, the last one we sponsored it with the hospital.
well, whoever you want. I mean, I'm just, you
And
know.
it was, so Helene, you're gonna,
I'll contact Margot.
you'll take this on?
Helene, keep me in the loop on that, would you? Thank you.
And you will, and how about the physician contact?
Sure, I can do that.
That's
too.
where we kind of,
It's just staying
Thank
on
you.
top of it.
we had a meeting with the hospital, and we both walked away, I'm not sure we understood each responsibilities.
Right.
So we will go ahead with that, that's terrific, and we'll do it in this room sometime
Yep.
in August.
Mhm.
Be a good time, when it's nice and hot.
Could you consider having a clinician and an epidemiologist? Might not work out. Could you try to?
We would find, if we have more than one, we want them complementary, so they're not saying the same thing. So yeah, maybe an epidemiologist or someone. We can talk to Dr. Qureshi again if he's well, and he has a lot of contacts. And he's a clinician / scientist, so he would talk more about just not staying out of the sun, but he'd talk about little science. Okay, thank you, Helene. We will move forward with that. Draft biodegradable regulations, you sent us a copy, Richard?
Yes. I'm not sure whether the entire board has noticed or not, but in the past 2.5 to 3 weeks, the town of Nantucket has been cited in the Boston paper and in the Cape Cod Times as being the leader in the Cape and Islands, East Coast, Massachusetts area in biodegradable packaging. Unfortunately, if one moves around town, one notices that may not be entirely true. As you are aware, we have a biodegradable packaging bylaw, which truly has no teeth at this point because the committee associated with making determinations as to what is biodegradable and what isn't was disbanded, and that portion was that requirement was taken out of the regulation many, many years ago. In that time frame, certainly the large stores, A&P when it was there, and now First National, Stop and Shop and First National, have maintained no styrofoam containers and paper bags. However, we are seeing an erosion of that concept on many of the dry goods stores and in many, many of the food service establishments. Takeout food is coming home in everything from aluminum plates to plastic to styrofoam, things of that nature, none of which is obviously biodegradable. And I think the town of Nantucket needs to live up to its reputation at this point. In that regard, I have solicited a couple of companies, and all of the materials that you're going to see here, all of this stuff, is all completely compostable, including knives, forks, and spoons, cups, glasses.
It's incredible.
Wow. This is biodegradable?
Look at this.
Those are plastic.
Plastic bags that are compostable.
Wow, this
It's pretty amazing stuff, and I think it's something that needs to be used everywhere on the island. They are compartmentalized. Some of them are spun sugar. Some of them are starch materials. They are every bit biodegradable and compostable. This is from one company. The benefit of that is the company is located on Martha's Vineyard and has an outlet on Nantucket. This is not rocket science. This can be done on island through this company here. I think the board has to determine whether it wants to support the regulation, and then I think the board needs to determine who should enforce the regulation. This can either be a bylaw, which would be enacted at the next town meeting, or it could be a regulation from the health department, or, as I believe, it should be something that should be a regulation with the Board of Public Works enforced by the health department. I have no problem with the enforcement of this. I just think it needs to be with the Board of Public Works as they oversee the landfill and things of that nature.
Let me ask one question. Price-wise, how does this compare price-wise to what everybody is using, they shouldn't be using?
Well, at this point, I have intentionally stayed away from the prices of these. Obviously, they're going to be a bit more expensive.
Okay.
But I think, again, we are being looked at as a model community for the use of biodegradable and compostable materials, and we're not living up to that. And I think it's time we did, but that's my opinion.
No, that's right, but I think if we could find out if there's only a little bit of difference between what people are spending to send stuff home compared to what this is, then it's a simple, no, it's a no-brainer saying it's not like it's going to cost you people a ton of money more to switch.
Well, all I'm asking for is a vote to agree to pursue this issue at this point. I could certainly arrive at the board next month with cost figures associated with this. We can actually have a representative of probably this company come in and give us an indication as to what the costs are.
Yeah, but we don't. I think you could just find that out without bringing someone from the company. You could find out the cost without having to drag somebody here.
Well, yeah.
I mean, my concern is that we have some present to the board, and it's actually some other board that does it, then.
Well, I think I'm ready to make the pitch in front of anybody at this point. I think I've started here because this seems to be the logical place where enforcement would lie.
Is there any objection to Richard proceeding on this path?
I don't have any.
I don't think there is, but I think you need to be realistic. There will be a pushback by certain parties right away if the differential is, I'm making something up more than 25%, or whatever the heck the differential is. People are already commenting on Richard's new upfrontness about the proposed biodegradable regulations. So
Well, I think the big thing is cost.
Right, so I think
It's cost.
we ought to, for us to give you support, I think we ought to find out what that is,
Yeah.
so we know the facts.
What
Right.
we're saying is I would ask Richard to continue to do his research.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you can't say to people, look, we're going to pass it on, you're going to do this, without saying, how much is, and the first thing they say is, well, how much more is this going to cost me?
Jim, exactly. This is to me like the Article 68 committee. You need to get them to buy in by
Right.
hook or by crook or education and
Yep.
shame them, whatever it takes. And then you can win. But if you're just going to, it's not going to work.
Well, there is a very large reluctance in wanting to discuss this issue on any number of fronts. Convenience, the finances, it's there. But again, we are being held up here as a model for the way the program should work, and it's not working here that well.
Just one other thing to be clear in my mind. So I haven't read the bylaw. So we have a bylaw, and then we have regulations there. And so regulations were adopted by somebody. They don't have to go to town meeting. Are there changes? How long is the bylaw? Is it the paragraph, 26 pages?
The
just
bylaw
roughly?
is about a page in the bylaws book, and it's maybe a page and a half. And essentially, it simply says you shall not use anything other than biodegradable packaging material on Nantucket. Unfortunately, the part that says if you do, this is what the penalty is going to be, was removed.
Right. But let's start. I mean, one way to start for us is, so we don't have to look it up, right where it is. Just email us a copy of the bylaw.
Okay.
And because that's the town bylaw.
Right.
It is what it is. It already exists.
How long ago was that? Do you know offhand?
20 years ago.
I mean, the technology is coming
Oh,
along.
tremendously, tremendously,
So
yeah.
things may be
Leaps
much
and bounds.
easier today.
And it stops with the Board of Health if we approve it?
I think Richard's, he wants to discuss the
No,
possibilities.
what I'm saying is, if we all agree to this thing, it's a good idea, la-di-da-da, and we pass the law, the Board of Health passes the law, is there pushback from other people
Well-
where they can go over our head?
I don't know that the Board of Health should pass the
Okay.
regulation. I think the board has to look at the regulation and decides if it wants to own the regulation or if the regulation belongs in a more appropriate venue. I think no matter how you look at it, it's going to be enforced by the local Board of Health, which I don't have a problem with.
Right. No,
we can enforce
my
it.
question was, if the law is passed on the island, that's the end of it.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yep.
No one can say, listen, I'm going to go to the Board of Selectmen, or I'm going to go to Boston. or I'm
That's
gonna go-
correct, that's correct.
That's right?
That's right, but I think the question is strategically, are we better off as a community to have it go through this venue or that
Right,
venue? I
right.
think that's what Richard's
Yes,
asking.
that's exactly
Okay,
correct.
that's
But I
fine.
think the Board of Health, it's like the fertilizer regulations. The Board of Health has the power to adopt regulations which are the rule of the law. if
Right.
you will.
Okay.
I think we're conceptually very ideal, we just not have enough data yet to make it official.
Right.
Okay. I will, and no matter what, this is not something that would be enacted right away. I certainly understand, and everybody has to understand, that businesses have already ordered their summer stock for this year.
Right.
So this year is gone. I think we've got to make this effective probably February, March, April, May of next year. That way, they've got a head start on it, and they understand that they shouldn't be ordering any more of X, and they should be looking at other types.
Well, it's going to take a year to get everything bought in and
Just, again, to be clear in my own mind what this does is, so right now, the stuff I get from somebody goes in the plastic bin. And you're saying this will go in the regular garbage
That can
bin
go
and go
right
through
in
the
the regular
digester
garbage bin
out
and-
at the landfill.
And yes,
All right.
will not survive the big Bernie tube thing.
Yeah, it'll just turn into my compost
Yeah.
with little glass bullets, but sorry about that.
It will certainly cut down on the waste stream.
Well, I was going to say, there's so even if it costs a little more, the town, right now, we spend a hell of a lot more processing plastic.
Exactly.
than we do. The digester's running anyway, so to speak, so it's got capacity. And this is free in that
Right,
sense.
so it's,
So,
So use of this here would cut dramatically into the cost of what we have to spend to get rid of the plastic.
let's get an estimation of the cost savings and an estimation of the increased costs and so on. And it might actually make sense when we see it.
yeah, now, if we ever start, I'm sorry.
There's probably more than just one company that's.
Oh, no question about it. I just use this
probably
because it's
choices for
convenient.
people, too.
So you said there is an outlet on Nantucket for this product. So there are people on the island already buying this product.
I don't know that.
I've carried containers of food from someone recently in a box that felt just like that.
Yeah. I purposely not asked that question until I brought it to the
Okay.
board.
Richard, you have your
Marching orders.
marching orders. Health Director's report.
Okay, first of all, I will be before the Board of Selectmen next Wednesday evening to unveil a tick testing program. This is part of our arsenal of tools to be utilized with regard to tick-borne disease this year. A grant was offered to 31 communities within the state of Massachusetts to participate in this. We certainly are one of them. And essentially, it removes the cost of testing a tick, not an individual, a tick for tick-borne disease. Now, what this means to an individual is, and as you know, if you show up at a physician's office or the emergency room, you're treated prophylactically here. There's no blood tests are done. Everybody just, let's go and get it done now. If you find a tick on your arm or something embedded in your skin, you can remove that tick, send it to the laboratory at the University of Massachusetts, and within 48 hours or less, they will turn the test around, respond to you directly as to what diseases were found in that tick, if you choose to wait and not go to a physician if there's no need to. It will also give us a better indication about where perhaps the infected ticks truly are on the island. It may not, but there is a chance that information could come out of this, in that we are asking the individual on the form to list where he or she felt that they picked up the tick or where they had been when the tick arrived on their personage. Again, it's a free program. It requires filling out a short application, placing the tick in a particular mailer, and sending it off in the lab, and you will hear very shortly about what that tick had, and the health department will receive copies of the diagnostic work done on the tick. We will not receive the individual's name, but we will receive what the diagnostics are on the tick. Now, the only problem with this right now is that the mailers aren't available, the brochures aren't available, so we've been holding off on this. I will announce Wednesday that the application will be on the website. We're going to put the application for this on the town website. They can fill it out there, hit a button, and it downloads it direct to the lab. They will be given an address. They put the tick in a small mailer, send it off at no cost, and they will receive their results 48 hours later. The other problem is we are only allocated 100 tests for each community this year. That's all the funding would afford. Again, there are 31 communities, and there was $100,000 offered. And between the printed materials and the testing, the money is utilized to its fullest. I think it's a worthwhile program because it's free. And we will be encouraging people to do this. Again, it will be unveiled at the Selectmen's meeting next Wednesday. We will be noting it on various and sundry meetings that we attend, and we'll do a little bit more publicity about it. There will be these brochures, which are actually very nicely done. The front page is how it works, the testing and all of that. Inside, it's an awful lot of types of ticks, resources, tick removal, and questions and answers about ticks. And I have ordered thousands of those.
Limited to one tick a bag, right?
Yes, one tick a bag. Nice try. So that's coming next month. I'm sorry, next week with the Board of Selectmen. Let's see, what else?
Just a quick question. So we'll make sure, if I got a tick, am I making a choice between going to the doctor or sending the tick off? I mean, is the idea that I'll find out
No, you can
quickly
do
that-
both.
But is the idea that I'd find out whether it's infected or not, then I could choose to go to the doctor or not afterwards?
That is one of the options there. The other option is to, again, as you say, immediately go to the ER but send the tick off. That way we get a little bit of information about the tick, what it carried, where it might have come from, and the individual may know that they just got treated needlessly.
Well, you could always stop.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. There are individuals who are allergic to a lot of antibiotics, and this will help them make a decision.
I think we'll see if it's of any value. I'm withholding judgment.
Anything that's free can't be that bad.
Of course, I could have said that the money could have been spent other ways, but listen.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? That's a tough battle.
Boy, yeah.
We will follow the program and see what we learn from it.
Yep.
And maybe
Absolutely.
We'll open up something we can't even
Who knows?
imagine.
Number two, we are already receiving complaints about housing situations. Housing, it appears, is going to be a rather substantial problem this summer, more so than in the past 4 or 5 years from the number of concerns that we're getting. We are getting phone calls about my neighbors putting 7 or 8 or 9 beds in the basement. We are following up on all of them, but it's very, very early to receive these complaints. I sincerely believe that we are going to be extremely busy with overcrowding issues for the summer. Just a heads up.
Can I just follow up on that? So if you go out to a house and find there are beds that are not legal, what happens next?
There are a number of approaches to
order for
this.
removal or what?
Yes, essentially, the building department and the health department are involved initially in this inspection. Dependent upon what's been constructed in the basement, the building department gets involved to either remove and/or get an appropriate permit for, if it's something that's permitted period. If it's not even permitted down there, they've got to remove it all. In our case, if it doesn't meet the human habitation code, and most of these don't, we require an immediate evacuation of the area and what we call a partial condemnation. That will come to the board. It may have to come in an emergency meeting, but this is the practice that we followed and have followed since the unfortunate incident out on Macy's Lane of a year and a half ago.
Because I think, we've all heard these stories that, the town hasn't in the past followed up and taken action. So it sounds like this is a new and different, higher level of activity that we're involved in. I just want to be clear.
That is the case in the last 18 to 24 months. We have an enforcement team that now, and we move under the radar. I mean, it's not something that we bring up all the time, but we are actively involved in all of these scenes that get turned into our office.
And there was, you brought two temporary condemnations to us.
We have had two.
We've had two last
Yeah.
year.
And I've had to go back out, and in both cases found that they were reoccupied. We find the owners, and they are now vacant basements.
You can only go in if there's a complaint, is that correct? You can't go in.
We can go in if there is a complaint. It can even be, with the health department, an anonymous complaint.
Okay.
We are probably the only entity in any form of municipal government that can go in on an anonymous complaint. That's part of Massachusetts general law. We receive complaints from neighbors. We receive complaints from the police department, from the fire department. We work hand in glove with these departments trying to remediate this stuff. But I really do believe that we're going to be seeing a lot of it this summer.
What's happening, as far as in the real estate business, is people that were living in year-round rentals, the owners are putting those houses on the market. They're selling them to people who are spending money to fix them up, taking year-round people and throwing them out, and they're renting them strictly for big money in the summer. So you have year-round people that have been here renting for years and years and years that are looking. I get 50, 60, 70 emails through my real estate thing that people are absolutely desperately trying to find places to live.
We have had 2 requests for tents already, the seasonal summer use tents, which is prohibited.
I know a guy that is living in a shed, and what he did is he joined a health club so that he can go there in the morning, work out, take a shower, shave, take his clothes with him, and he's living in someone's shed.
It's kind of like living in a car or on a boat. Do you keep a log? So if you were asked to report how many and when the complaints came in and the result of them so that we all know how many? Okay.
Yep.
Will you keep us informed of anything else?
I will. Yes, a couple of 2 other things. Where's the next one? Just an update, medical marijuana is a stalemate at this point for Nantucket. There has been no assigned retail sale location here on Nantucket. I am told that the Department of Public Health will assign an individual or a group of individuals to initiate a medical marijuana dispensing site on Nantucket. That has not happened yet. Just an update.
So the one who was actively trying to get here never made it back in the queue, or did you hear?
The two that actively were involved in looking to establish sites on Nantucket did not meet the complete criteria as provided by the Department of Public Health.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. Hard to understand that. I mean, those, at least the one that I'm aware of, spent a lot of time and effort, and then to be knocked out, I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a non-refundable deposit, right?
Well, the non-refundable deposit.
Where does that money
was a
go?
deterrent for a lot of
Where
folks.
does that money go? The state?
State keeps it.
Okay.
Yeah. We really will have, once this is established here on Nantucket, the local health department will have absolutely nothing to do with the licensing and/or inspections thereof. We are just a conduit for paperwork at this point. The next point is, just briefly, we finally received a list and sent out licensing forms to 109 waste haulers on Nantucket. Yes, we used criteria associated with the waste options
You sent us a copy of that spreadsheet and went, I assume you went down to some level and cut off?
Yes. We went down to individuals making more than 10 trips in the last 12 months to the C&D site were sent licensing forms. Anything over 10 trips, they were considered licensable. And 109 have gone out. We're getting phone calls already. It's interesting. Some people are willingly ponying up the funding and the appropriate paperwork, and there are a number of individuals who may try to fight this.
Just to be clear again, as I recall the list, it didn't discriminate between someone who was clearly in the business of hauling for others and someone who was hauling for their own construction business.
That's correct.
So again, just to be clear, I assume if I'm in business for myself and I'm clearing my own construction sites or, whatever, I'm not subject to the hauler regulations, or am I?
You are if you are going and taking your debris to C&D.
Right.
Even though I'm not hauling it for Steve, you know what I mean?
That's correct.
I
If you
thought the
are
idea was you were in business.
a local,
No, well, basically you are. If this was the point I brought up when we were licensing, one for all or all for one. If you're a general contractor
Right.
and you're building 10 houses a year, you're not hauling for yourself, you're hauling for a client. And if you're hauling all that stuff to C&D, you should have a license.
Okay. That's helpful. So that's the way it's working.
that's the way it's working. And if you've made more than 10 trips in the last 12 months, you're going to be
And that's
licensed.
only fair.
That was fair.
I thought that was an appropriate number.
You're absolutely right, that's fair. That's what I was worrying about all along when you're doing these licenses. I said, there's lots of guys that are hauling stuff to the dump. And you said, well, we're just going to take these, originally, what was it, 5 or 6?
5.
Yeah.
And then, so that's moving along. Hopefully, we'll have a report of many more licenses being issued by next month.
You got one more thing.
One more thing. Yeah, this was so exciting, it caused me to bite my lip.
I have a feeling someone's on the inside.
You have to get here early.
Gee.
Every once in a while, there's a certain amount of pride that you take in some of the things that you do. I learned an hour ago, about an hour and a half ago, that the Department of Public Health and the Department of Environmental Protection has taken my recommendation with regard to beach water quality testing and is promulgating them into a regulation, is pushing it through the system, and hopefully Ray's Rule will be there by June 1st.
Congratulations.
What this allows us is it allows us on select beaches that do not demonstrate epidemic-type closures that a single high count, a single elevated count, will not close a beach. You need 2 counts that are elevated above the maximum limit in a 24-hour period to close the beach. This makes such sense. I'm thrilled to death that this is happening. I'm just very excited about this.
Well, congratulations.
Somebody finally listened.
Sort of like dedicating a building, right? But you didn't have to give $1 million, right? You just had to do the work.
Yeah.
Put my name on a lifeguard stand.
Yeah, there you go.
Anything else?
That's it.
I just had one more thing. The week of the 27th, Wednesday or Thursday, a gentleman from U.S. Biologics is visiting the island. I sent you out an article about their work a couple of months ago of vaccinating the mice with anti-Lyme vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a commercial outfit. I sent the article to our consultant, Sam Telford, who didn't think much of their work. But he actually, he's working on a similar project. So before this would be available, it would be at least a year, but he was willing to come and talk to us. So Richard and I, and perhaps we are going to meet with him, but I will send you a note, and then if anybody else would like to talk to him. It's a unique theoretical concept where you take care of the tick and the mice.
It's done by pellet. We're not catching mice and giving them shots, right?
Right. So,
It's like shooting mice.
I'm not, I am, like most things, skeptical of this, but I think if he's willing to come and tell us, answer some questions, at least we'll be familiar with the technology, because it may, actually somebody, may not be him, but somebody may actually develop it.
Well, interestingly enough, just as a quick sidelight here, over on the Cape, they, for many years, had problems with raccoons and rabies on the Cape, once you get over the bridge. Approximately 8 or 9 years ago, they started baiting the canal with baits that inoculated the raccoons and removed rabies, the rabies from the raccoons, which went well and good. They couldn't find a raccoon with rabies on the Cape for years. They stopped the program. And within 11 months, they had rabies back on the Cape in the form of raccoons. They have since rebaited everything, and now they can't demonstrate rabies in raccoons on the Cape anymore. So the concept, to an extent, works.
Yeah, the concept works. So what we will see will be interesting. I think it would be a lot easier for us to go after the mice than deer for a lot of reasons. But
Yeah.
we will see.
A lot less resistance.
A lot less resistance. I don't think the mice have any groups that support them.
Oh,
Yeah.
one would spring up.
Yeah.
One
Right,
would
right,
spring
right.
up.
There'd be somebody standing here. And remember, I did contact the group at Tufts who were working on birth control for deer, and he didn't want to come. And talking to him, I got the sense he thought it would fail. He didn't want it to fail. Anyways, I could be wrong. But he wasn't interested in Nantucket, so let's go after the mice. Anything else? No.
Not here.
Hearing no objections, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all very much.
Well, Richard, congratulations.
Yeah, you're right. There'd be some.
Well, it was somewhat
Nice.
gratifying to know that after screaming for a year, somebody noticed.